Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Brazos Valley, or Brazos UU for short. My name is John Faber, and I am your worship assistant today. I come to this church because I understand that I am a single thread in the interconnected web of all existence. I come here to seek wisdom from all sources, to find acceptance for who I am, to share in a common goal that is guided by love, and to shine my light as a beacon for others to find their own way through this journey we call life. Welcome visitors, free thinkers, and free spirits. We are a welcoming congregation, which means we celebrate and welcome all people of any sexual orientation, race, age, gender identity, ability, or belief. So whoever you are, wherever you have come from, wherever you are in life's journey, you are welcome and encouraged here. Honoring the value of spiritual freedom and diversity, we have no statement of doctrine. As a covenanted community, we agree to a set of principles that we all follow as we search for truth and how it applies to ethical living. Unitarian Universalism is a faith of covenant, not creed. This means that Unitarian Universalists seek and use wisdom from many diverse sources. We encourage everyone to visit our website, brazos-uu.org, which is our digital home in this time of great transition in our world. During this time of pandemic, and in the midst of our building project, the website and these weekly services are our only home. As you can see there, the Brazos UU is always open to new directions, ideas, and partnerships. To find out more, you're always welcome to join our email list for updates from our weekly eCast and our monthly newsletter. And you can also find us on social media by searching UUCBV. For more information about this, you can write our administrator at admin@brazos-uu.org, which you should be able to see on the screen now. If you might like to contribute your musical talents, if you have a great story to share about your life's journey, or if you have a passion for social justice, we would love to hear from you. If you're interested in getting involved, you can find plenty of information on our website. To join a meeting and have your voice heard by our members, you can find links to all of our meetings on our interactive website calendar found at brazos-uu.org/calendar, which you should be able to see on the screen now. Our service today is about our fifth principle, in which we affirm the importance of democracy, of including all people in decision-making, and the right of conscience.
Our call to worship today is written by the Reverend Luke Stevens Royer. He writes this: I walk in as on pilgrimage. The altar cloths are red, white, and blue. The ushers are the women who have been running these things, who have been running everything since before I was born. I'm handed the ballot like a scroll because the questions seem that important, ancient and modern. And what of my God and country ask of me? Who? Who for commissioner, mayor, president? Who for District 8, Ward 7, school board? Who will do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly? I make my mark with at least a shred of hope that something good will come of this. And regardless, I remember, the world won't be destroyed entirely by this. The world won't be saved entirely by this. Marking my vote is like kneeling in prayer because neither will accomplish anything right away. But the purpose of both is to remind me of my deepest hope for the world that I'm trying to help create. So I rise from prayer and turn in my ballot. Remember the who is me, and us, and we the people. And again I set to the task that is mine, justice, mercy, humble service in my small corner of the world. Let us worship.
Thank you, Reverend Christian. Now, I invite you to light your own chalice, if you have one, as I light our chalice today. Please say our chalice lighting words with me. We light the chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, as a beacon of hope for all who seek justice, dignity, and compassion, and in celebration of the life of truth and meaning we share together. Now, all please join in saying our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its gift. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
I welcome you now to our time for all ages, in which we speak to people of all ages, but especially to some of our younger members. This week I'm talking a lot about the election, about the importance of voting, about the importance of being involved in the democratic process. That's the way that we make decisions together. We elect leaders, we create laws, we do things that help make our society better, or at least that's the theory. Now, with hundreds of millions of people in the United States, it can seem like our one vote might not make a difference. And often it doesn't. Often it's hundreds of thousands or millions or tens of thousands of votes that decide important things. But sometimes, just sometimes, 1 or 2 or 3 votes can really make a difference. I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of those times where it did make a difference. Our state, Texas, was not always a part of the United States. The original 13 colonies were here on the East Coast, where I am in Maryland. And slowly the United States grew and expanded and took in more states and more territory. Texas came along a little later in the mid-1800s. And it wasn't a guarantee that Texas would become a part of the United States. For a while, Texas was its own republic, its own country. But eventually, most Texans decided they wanted to be a part of the United States, and many in the United States wanted Texas to be a part of the country too. But in our country, that's not how things happen. We don't just decide we want things. We have to go through a process. And ultimately, it came into the Senate, the U.S. Senate, to decide whether Texas would be annexed, that is, added to the United States. At the time, there were 52 senators, not the 100 we have today, and those senators had to vote. All it needed was more than half of them to agree to bring Texas into the United States, and it would happen. There was a lot of talk about it, a lot of politicking, a lot of trying to decide who would vote for which side, and ultimately it came down to a very close vote. 27 senators voted to bring Texas into the United States, and 25 voted not to do so. So in that case, even one vote mattered. If one more senator had not voted that way, it would have been 26-26, and Texas might not have come into the United States. So our state is part of the United States because of the power of a vote. Your power has as much vote as any senator's. All of us have the chance to be a part of our democracy, to be a part of making a change, whether that's voting or campaigning or telling our elected officials how we feel. I hope that you have been a part of this election in whatever way you could, and I hope you'll continue to engage the democratic process so that we might make a better country, a better world.
We were having worship service in person. This is the time when we would pass the basket. This church shares the proceeds of the offering plate donations each week to support important nonprofit organizations with which we work. We have been proudly supporting UU the Vote this fall season, and many of us are working on this grassroots effort to engage and inform voters who need to reclaim their voting power. Remember, your vote is your voice and your power. If you wish to make an offering, you can mail your check, or for your convenience, you can donate online. On our homepage at brazos-uu.org, you can find our mailing address at the bottom, and you can see a Donate Here button to click and see our donation page options, which you should be able to see on the screen now. May each of us look into our hearts, how much love, how much generosity, how much faith, how much gratitude, how much hope is there. thanks for these gifts we have given, for those we receive, and for the gifts that we ourselves are. Thank you.
I invite you into a time of prayer and quiet reflection. The words of our prayer today come from the Reverend Beth Dana, who serves First Unitarian Church of Dallas. She writes, God of many names, mystery beyond all naming, lift us above the divisions, move us beyond inaction, and heal us that we may know our wholeness within and together. As we emerge this week through and past the election, there will be a time of regrouping, a time of celebration and despair. Let us continue on. May the victories energize the work ahead, and may there be space for disappointment. And then may the spirit of inspiration found in coming together stoke the fires of commitment within us. Commitment to our neighbors, to justice, to creating a better world, propelling us forward to do the shared work ahead. That our voices, that all voices may be heard, that we may find continued ways to love and to serve. May our relationships with those whose views we share, as well as with those whom we disagree, be filled with the spirit of compassion, moving us beyond the walls of our knowing, beyond the walls of sameness, towards each other's humanity. Amen. In each of our services, we take a time to share our joys and concerns, those joys so great we can't help but share them, those concerns and sorrows too heavy to bear by ourselves. I invite you now to use the chat to share any joy, sorrow, concern, or milestone you wish to with us, that we might hold all of them together. I lift up particularly the people of the Gulf Coast dealing with the effects of yet another hurricane. With all those who are suffering from the effects of the coronavirus, with those who are both looking forward to and dreading this week's election, with all those celebrating great joys and all those dealing with great burdens. Please share yours with us in the chat box that we might hold it together. And as always, we lift up all of those things that go unspoken and unwritten, but are held nonetheless in our hearts by all of us. I have two readings today to share with you. The first comes from Frederick Douglass, who writes, "Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are people who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters. This struggle may be a moral one. It may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did. It never will. Find out what people will submit to, and you have found out the exact amount of injustice which will be imposed upon them. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress." So ends our first reading. Our second reading comes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He says, "I am convinced that if we are to get on the right side of the world revolution, We as a nation must undergo a radical revolution of values. We must rapidly begin the shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When machines and computers, profit motives, and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, extreme materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. A true revolution of values will soon cause us to question the fairness and justice of many of our past and present policies. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. A true revolution of values will soon look uneasily on the glaring contrast of poverty and wealth with righteous indignation. The Western arrogance of feeling that it has everything to teach others and nothing to learn from them is not just. A true revolution of values will lay a hand on the world order and say of war, this way of settling differences is not just. The business of burning human beings with napalm, of filling our nation's homes with orphans and widows, of injecting poisonous drugs of hate into the veins of people normally humane, of sending men home from dark and bloody battlefields, physically handicapped, psychologically deranged, cannot be reconciled with wisdom, justice, and love. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. America, the richest and most powerful nation in the world, can well lead the way in this revolution of values. There is nothing except a tragic death wish to prevent us from reordering our priorities so that this pursuit of peace will take precedence over the pursuit of war. He said these words in 1967.
Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride. If I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load you have to bear that you can't carry, just might have a problem that you'd understand. We all need somebody to lean on.
The Unitarian Universalist minister David O. Rankin liked to relate a story from his career. In 1968, he preached a sermon just before the presidential election, much like I'm doing today. In that race, he was not thrilled between the choice of Richard Nixon and Hubert Humphrey. And so, instead of making the case, however subtly, for either candidate, he chose instead to recommend that he hoped everyone would vote for the most intelligent, experienced, and compassionate candidate. Just a few minutes later, in the receiving line after church, he was confronted by a man loudly and angrily shouting at him, "How dare you use the pulpit to support Hubert Humphrey?" I don't endorse any candidates today. I don't speak out on any races or propositions, and I know many of you have already voted anyway. As a church, we are supposed to be about issues and values, not about specific candidates. I know many of you have voted by mail or in person at early voting, and if you haven't yet, I do urge you to make your plan now for when and how you will vote. Today I look at our current political landscape, and it's been this way for years, let's be real. I see deep divisions. I see that we have relied too much on civility, on respect for tradition, on the goodwill of the people in charge. And this week, once again, we've seen that that is inadequate. A Supreme Court justice has been rammed through in a process that no person could reasonably consider fair, in order to support the continued success of a small minority who hold power in our country. This week wasn't a loss for one party, as it's been described in many circles. It's a loss for democracy. And next week's elections, no matter who prevails, will not fix every problem we have. It'll take a long time and a lot of effort to do that. But today I want to talk politics, but not parties, because for decades now, we've heard some of the same lies being told. We've repeatedly been told about values voters or the moral majority, the religious right, about family values and pro-life voters, and you've heard these things before. I think it's time to change the script. It's past time, and because, friends, I'm a values voter, and the values I hold dear are taking care of my fellow human beings, ending oppression, making sure that people have healthy food and a safe place to live. My values are supportive of people of all gender expressions and sexual orientations, people of all races and ethnicities, of all national origins. I'd like to think that my values are truly pro-life, not just pro-birth. I consider myself both moral and to be part of a majority. I try to live a good life. I try not to harm others as much as is possible, to do the right things, and to be a good person. And I believe that the majority, perhaps all of us, are doing those same things, even if we sometimes differ on how to accomplish them. And I hope in this context, at least, it goes without saying that I'm religious but not right. I'm tired of the conversation, in fact, about religion in this country, assuming that religious people span a great gamut from fundamentalists to conservative to maybe slightly less conservative Christians. If we could let the major news outlets know this sometime soon, that would be great, that there are people who are liberal and leftist and religious, that there are people of many different religions in our country, and that they hold deeply held religious values and serious political positions too. I think I have great family values, and those values include supporting same-sex couples in living their lives the way they choose to, with the same access to rights and privileges I have as a heterosexual cisgender man in an opposite-sex marriage. I also have family values that say children should grow up in a home where they are loved and cared for and supported, and that matters more than almost any other concern. And like I said, I think I'm truly pro-life, but not in the narrow, nonsensical way I often hear those who claim that title use. I support life. I want to support the flourishing of all human life. I recognize that women have a better understanding of their own bodies and decisions than I do. I oppose the death penalty, again, because I support life. I'm anti-poverty and pro-prison reform because I'm for life. And I'm pro-medicine and pro-science. I'm pro-socialized medicine even because I'm for life. I'm even, to flip the script a little more, and here's something you might not expect your UU minister to say, pro-gun. Pro-gun. I don't own any. I don't intend to own any. But I'm not opposed to guns. I've lived in many places where guns are important, and not as some symbol or an inflated sense of self-defense. I grew up in Texas, after all. It was my time in rural Mississippi where I spent time with many people who hunted, for whom guns were part of a way of life. I spent time with people who each donated hundreds of pounds of meat a year to a local children's home as part of a program called Hunters for the Hungry. So I'm pro-gun, and I'm pro-responsible gun ownership, and I'm pro-sensible gun control. And I don't find any of those stances to be contradictory. Maybe you think at least some of these same things about yourself, and you cringe at the destructive, divisive policies and platforms you hear from people who are too eager to lift up their moral framework as the right and proper and only one for our country. A country too large, too diverse, too amazing to be contained by any one system of seeing or thinking. I've been really attracted to the Moral Mondays movement and Reverend Dr. William Barber, the Poor People's Movement, too. They are following the prophetic calls of those who have come before us, like Frederick Douglass, like the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., like Barbara Jordan and Rosa Parks, and so many, including Reverend Barber, who are working today. Barber has called upon people of faith to make a moral declaration together, which I'll summarize here. It says that we lift up and defend the most sacred moral principles of our faith and constitutional values, which are pro-people and anti-war policies, equality in education, healthcare for all, fairness for all people in the criminal justice system, rights for all people, especially people of marginalized identities. I'm so proud of the work our members are doing in the election process as part of UU the Vote. I'm proud of the work we do in our local communities. And all of this is part of the same work of creating the beloved community. And no matter who is elected Tuesday, and I mean that, and it's also clear that we may not have a good idea who's been elected by Tuesday night, all of the work will continue. So friends, if you haven't already, I urge you to vote for the most intelligent, experienced, and compassionate candidates on Tuesday. And then go love the hell out of the world, each of us, in our unique ways. The world cries out for our efforts, and no election will end that.
Now, please join me in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we gather together again. Thank you.
Friends, if you have already voted, I thank you. If you have yet to vote, please do so. And either way, we have a lot of work to do in our country, and this is only the beginning. May a new beginning start now, and may it lead us into a new era. Go in peace. Our worship has ended, and our service begins.